All right, so hi and welcome to our first panel discussion where we'll talk about how the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting the cookware, bakeware, and small appliances market. Although this is a recording, we do ask if you have any questions throughout the discussion, or if you'd like to have us talk about future topics, you can submit those via Slido, and we'll throw a slide up here and at the end of the event. You can address any questions or any further topics by using the hashtag AskPPG. So by way of some introductions, I'm Mike Petrasic, and I'm a marketing manager for PPG Industrial Coatings. I'll be serving as your moderator today, and I'm pleased to be joined by three individuals from some of the most recognizable brands across the world. Our first panelist is Wendy Dyer. She is the Director of Strategic Marketing for All-Clad Metal Crafters, who's a maker of high-quality cookware and kitchen accessories. All-Clad is a division of Group SEB, which is a $7 billion global leader in the housewares industry. I'm also joined by Danielle Cowden, who is the Director of Marketing for Cuisinart, a division of Conair Corporation. Cuisinart's mission is to develop and market innovative, high-end kitchen products that enable consumers to quickly and easily provide their families with home-cooked foods, from a cup of coffee to an extravagant holiday meal. And finally, rounding out our panel is Jose Merino, who is the Sourcing and Project Manager for Bergner Europe, a 20-year-old houseware company synonymous with innovation, quality, and value, and whose goal is to grow together with partners and clients worldwide by offering global solutions to retail. So first off, thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with me today. In today's panel, we're going to talk through what we're calling the three phases of impact. So business as it was prior to COVID and the closes that have happened in 2020. The effects felt once countries began to gradually slow down, and then really the new path forward and any trends that we're seeing in the industry. So we'll start with that first part, so setting the stage. We're already hearing about COVID-19 at the end of 2019, but it's worth highlighting that the shutdowns have taken a pretty gradual pace across the world. So closing out the end of 2019, we saw at PPG, the cookware and bakeware and small appliance industries is a growing market, and housewares was up slightly, and small electrics was actually up a little bit faster. So looking back, and I'll ask you first, Wendy, how would you describe your individual market and the opportunities facing, and the challenges facing your business as you closed out 2019?
Well, as you know, All-Clad is a high-end cookware company for the most part, and with the economy being strong, we saw a lot of consumers trading up for things that they wanted to have lasting power, things that are going to last and be really high quality. So our business has been pretty strong for the last several years. But what we did see is on the retail side, it was getting challenging as you're seeing different retailers going out of business, declaring bankruptcy, restructuring, changing in leadership. We saw some changes in strategy as they got more and more focused on how are we the retailers who are going to survive. So what had been happening is we had a lot of different exclusives and pushes for newness had been happening over the last several years. When retailers started to look inside, they started to see, that's really expensive and difficult and risky. So what we saw as a trend is people focusing more on basics and going back to basics and core items as opposed to the constant push for newness we were seeing prior.
That's really interesting. Jose, what were some of the challenges and opportunities that you saw closing out 2019?
Yeah, at that time, when finishing the year, as we are very, very fast company in creating new concepts and new projects, and at that time, we were growing very, very fast in the last quarter of the year, and we were very huge plans for markets like India and America, and in 2020, no? So it was going to be a very challenging year for us, with huge projects just starting or about to start. Also, not only in America, but our new collection Origin in Spain, Master Pro by Carlo Cracco in Italy, and the launchment of new categories like electrical appliances with our chef brand Master Pro, with multi-cooker robots or fryers. And also we were launching in January our new Eureka business, firstly in Spain, and then rest of Europe will come, but which is a category that is 100% related to one of the most dramatically affected businesses as hotels, restaurants. So all this situation has put us in a completely new scenario, and these projects, of course, together with the centralization of many departments from different headquarters in the world, all centralized in our new big headquarters in Zaragoza, in Spain. It was going to be very demanding, and the only thing that happened now is that it's becoming much more demanding. So in any case, we are not stopped, and we'll continue. And the only thing we are doing is slowing down some of the launchments and hoping that the situation will change in the next 1-2 months.
Danielle, same question to you. What opportunities were you seeing? What sort of challenges at the end of 2019?
2019 for us, for Cuisinart, was a fabulous year, quite honestly. And in our electrics and our non-electrics business, the challenges we were facing were more kind of what Wendy was talking to. Retailers just, always wanting their own deals, retailers wanting exclusives, retailers, maybe not necessarily following our suggested retail prices. I would say that was one of our biggest challenges at the end of 2019. And so we were, going forward with strategic plans to address that for 2020 at that time. Moving forward with all of our new projects. We, of course, have offices in Hong Kong and in different places in China. So we were starting at the end of 2019 to see the effects of, information flow slowing down, coming from China at that time already. So we were, making plans for how do we address that and still keep our new projects on track. So that was really how we closed out the year on the retail side in the US, strong, but seeing that, understanding already that things were going to be challenging for new product development and for inventory flow coming into 2020.
So that's a really good segue to actually our second question. I'll stay with you on this one, Danielle. So obviously it's impacted everyone across the world, which has resulted in some strategic shifting. And it sounds like you all had started planning for that strategic shifting really at the end of 2019. So what would you say has had the biggest impact on your business, and what steps have you taken to move forward in both the short and long term?
Yeah, Cuisinart has needed to be very nimble as we've gone into the beginning of 2020 because, we did have a lot of brick and mortar business. Obviously, web has been growing, .com has been growing for years, but we had a very strong brick and mortar presence. So we had to adapt to the fact that that business 100% pretty much shifted for a while to .com. And did we have the inventory for those different needs too? Bread makers, rice cookers, things that hadn't increased in years, we're seeing big increases in 2020. We're still seeing big increases in some of those areas. So trying to make sure that we had the right inventory has been a big challenge for our logistics and planning team. And so far we're doing good. We're doing surprisingly well in 2020 so far. It's just, I think it's coming in places that we weren't expecting it. So being able to be nimble at the beginning of 2020 has been a big theme for our company.
Thanks. Jose, let's same question to you. What would you say has had the biggest impact on your business, and what steps have you all taken in the short and long term?
Sure. As a global company, we have been also affected since very early in the year. First, by the closing of the factories in China, as 70% of our products come from Asia. And then later, gradually, our markets in Italy, Spain, rest of Europe, where our 60% of our business is dramatically affected, almost stopped during the month of March. So economy was shocked and shops closed, and then America and India as well, which is not affecting us much as to us, But combining all these cases and all these situations, firstly, we had no production, and then at that time, Europe and America still demanding stocks that luckily we had, huge stocks from 2019. And then when the factories reopened and we had to ship, customers started to cancel the orders because they were holding the sales here. No? So this is the most difficult situations that we have, that we could expect were in logistics. The capacity for our adaptation to the new logistical requirements. Also, another important task has been the quickness. You were talking about the answer, no? Our company has been very fast to adapt to this new way of working, and doing it from home. Okay, not without meetings, without flying to China to check or to the customers. So arranging these multi-conferentials with on the left the supplier, on the right the customer, and checking how is the production and when it's going to be sold to avoid the problems with the stocks. No, so basically this has been the most challenging situation for us.
Mm-hmm. Then Wendy, I'll round this question out with you. I think you might be on mute there.
Strong. Oh, sorry. I think I'm still muted.
It's okay. You're good.
Short term, what we saw, the business came. It's just, it shifted where it was coming from, similar to what Danielle was saying. But we saw it was still the same type of products, but shifting between our retailers. So those strong and advanced in e-com came first, and those that might be a step behind and more heavily reliant on brick and mortar were suffering. Amazon was slow to come as they focused on essentials and then shifted into the deliveries. It's not that demand wasn't there, it's just they weren't shipping. So overall business has been strong. It's just a matter of where it's come from. And then as we look at mid and long term, our factory is shut down in Canonsburg. We have the benefit of having some products coming from overseas and some domestic, but we have been shut down for about a month and a half and reopened today, actually. But we're out of stock. If you go to major retailers and go online, our key items are out of stock. This isn't consistent with a lot of other brands out there. You'll see sets shipping and then they'll follow up with some components later. We aren't doing that, but it's not unique to us. So the first thing that we're worried about is the health and safety of our employees. So it's great to open up the factory, but how do we keep everyone safe and healthy? And that doesn't mean firing up like we usually do. We're going to be a lot slower at first. So we're going to be working through that in the next couple of weeks, figuring out how to socially distance our employees, making major changes, which is going to be tough going into summer when it's hot, because a lot of the safety measures aren't necessarily comfortable for employees. But realizing that we just have to simplify our product assortment, not having dedicated components where it's not necessary, because we're struggling with components coming from factories here, or if it's overseas, it's just become a lot more complicated. So mid and long term, we're looking at simplifying so that we can improve our agility more and more as time goes on.
Great. I want to circle back to something that you had said, Danielle, regarding e-commerce. So historically, a brick and mortar retailer has signaled a level of trust in the types of products that are sold inside. But today, especially in this market, you can go online, read reviews, watch a tutorial video, and feel pretty good about whether or not you think you're getting a quality product. For the retailer, having a strong digital presence also allows brand owners to collect data and gather insights on their customers, which lets you be a little bit more targeted in your marketing. So how has the rise in e-commerce really changed how brand owners market their products and the experience customers are really now expecting?
Yeah, I think as far as marketing goes, again, we've kind of been shifting some things that product categories for us that we've been marketing towards, because essentials are more important, or people can't find those essentials, let's say, such as bread, so they are buying a bread maker. And so some of that marketing has shifted to say, hey, don't forget, Cuisinart has bread makers, they have rice makers, some of these essentials where that's not an area we'd normally market. Something else that's recently really shifted for us in e-com is our company in general is putting a lot more effort into going into all of our retailer e-com websites and making sure we have all of the different photographs, all of the different views that we want to have, that we have a reason why a customer would really love this product. And, we're really focusing on, how can we market it just on that page, not necessarily through, Google searches or other AdWords, things like that. Also focusing on the content that they're seeing when they're on the retailer's website and making sure that we're putting our best foot forward, and, on our own website as well. So both ways.
Interesting. Sort of a follow-up, Wendy, we've seen a lot of direct-to-consumer. Do you think direct-to-consumer is becoming more popular? And if so, kind of why?
It's been a very, very difficult time for us. It's hard to watch because we don't know exactly how big these direct-to-consumer businesses are, but they're coming right at us. If you Google All-Clad today, you'll get a direct-to-consumer brand saying, hey, we're cheaper and just as good. Fact is, it's not just as good. What we have is a situation where our housewares industry today is made up of product experts making the best product out there, and it requires a lot of effort and money to distribute into retailers. High co-op, high markup, but you get the benefits. When you go into a store, you have the sales associates explaining things, you have the reach of their ads, you get the traffic on their websites. And what's happened over time is consumer behavior has changed, and it's lessened the benefits of those retailers. And that's when those direct-to-consumer brands came in, swooped in, and they're seeing an opportunity. And they're going direct, focusing, using social media advertising, and having a very targeted ad, spending 100% digitally. And it's really also just create an opportunity for us to up our game and focus on things like Danielle was saying, making sure our digital presence is pristine, making sure all that information is out there so that when a consumer is looking at a direct-to-consumer brand versus these respectable brands like All-Clad, Cuisinart that are out there, that we can explain the product differences and benefits so that it's clear why this, not that.
Cool. I was hoping we could shift gears a little bit and talk about, I would say one of the bright spots throughout all of this, consumer spending. And I know that, that's an interesting topic because places like travel and retail and entertainment have taken a pretty big hit, but food and grocery sales have remained really strong. In fact, we're actually seeing online grocery sales increase and on track to make up 20% of all grocery purchases. So this has actually had a trickle-down effect on housewares, and with small electric sales improving in March, according to research firm NPD, as consumers search for ways to make cooking more convenient. I think we've touched on this a little bit with the types of products that they're purchasing. But knowing that shutdowns will gradually be lifted, but consumers have already made the investment in a lot of their kitchen products. Is the home cooking trend one that we see as here to stay, or is it a temporary response to the current crisis? Let's start with you, Jose.
Yeah. We think this trend has just arrived months ago, and then we really think that it's here to stay for at least 1-2 years more. Maybe people is buying new stuff. Also, they are getting much more involved in the kitchen and cooking with the kids or with the couple or with the dad or with whoever. So cooking in family in the end, and they are learning together. Also, the feeling here is that people is discovering that by staying at home for lunch or dinner, it saves a lot of money. So in hard situations that maybe will come because of the loss of employment, everything, we think that from this point of view, also people will like to use and save the money because they have spent money in all this new stuff they have bought, especially those who have bought expensive material like robots or bread machines, etc. And also another topic is that many people is using the cookware a lot these last months in Europe, after more than maybe more than in the last 2 years. And thus they are discovering that the cookware gets old It's not something that is in the basin and then you don't use and it's always there, no? So the cookware is getting affected. So in the end, they will have to use it and they will have to change. So it's good for us also that they will renew the stocks. And for instance, also customers like important customers for us, big EP markets like Carrefour and other hypermarkets in Europe are already planning big promotions for the last quarter of this year, but not only, also first quarter of 2021 and months to come. So I think everybody here now expects that this is here to stay.
Great. Wendy, is cooking from home here to stay?
Oh, for sure. I think one thing people are noticing too, they're cleaning up their home. They're getting rid of the old. They're coming in with new home renovations. People are painting rooms or setting up their decks. They want to make home an exciting place. And there are a lot of people out there that didn't have the skills. They were relying heavily on eating out. And now that it's become, not as an enjoyable thing, but as a functional thing, people have been cooking at home and developing skills they never had. So now understanding the economic benefit and just the enjoyment of cooking together, I see that as being an actual headwind for the housewares industry, in that with people looking at home renovations or freshening things up, starting fresh and new and making sure everything's clean and neat and having the right tools to do the right task. And then it makes the act of cooking more enjoyable. So I see this as being a multi-year trend for sure.
Danielle, are we going to go 3 for 3 on this one?
Yeah, I'm kind of in line with Wendy and Jose here. I think this is going to be a multi-year trend. I think we're going to see maybe a dip for a little bit when restaurants and bars and things like that open and people are like, oh, I can go out, for a little bit. But I think people have realized that they do have the skills. They can do it at home. There's been an increase in sales of meal kits as well. So they're finding ways to still make it easy for them. I use like my slow cooker or my multi-cooker, probably 3 to 4 times a week right now. So when my office does open back up, I see that as something that I can continue to do. It's not, very labor intensive. I don't have to, do a whole bunch of planning. And I think a lot of consumers are realizing that, like, oh, I can have the best of both worlds and be able to make a home cooked meal while, still going about my daily life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. Our slow cooker and multi-cooker has been a godsend and something that we've relied on a lot. So I'd like to kind of pivot just a bit here and direct a question to you, Jose. So we're talking a little bit about this cook from home trend and how it being here to stay. One really interesting piece to that is millennials and Gen Z. So this is a population that's aging. They're going to be making up a global portion of the workforce over the next few years. And they've been major contributors to the growth of the gig economy. So relying heavily on delivery services for everything from food and groceries to personal care. But we're kind of getting to this point where millennials are reaching, certain milestones in life, getting married, buying a home, having children. Are there any specific trends that we may be seeing with their purchasing behavior in cookware? For instance, are they less interested in buying, say, a full set of cookware? Are they looking for more environmentally friendly products for convenience, anything like that?
Yeah, definitely in our market. This is something that we've been watching since years ago. It's not something really that new, but millennials and next generations are different, of course, in their behaviors, as well as we are different from the behavior of our parents or grandparents. Nobody's reacting same, People is not now. The new generations are not receiving, at least here in our countries, anymore those big cookware sets or dinnerware sets in the wedding list. Now everybody gets the money and because of their wedding, and so this is our first big change. But, not in my generation, but my parents. Everybody had these big sets for the wedding, And now people takes the money and they analyze they look what they want, what they need. And if they only need 2 or 3 fry pans or 3 knives, this is what they will buy. They will compare, they will check according to their budget or their needs. Also, our sales mix is adapting to this new way of purchase with more and more open collections with different and specialized items and less sets. But also, it's related to the material of the cookware and the countries. For instance, in Spain, Italy, other Southern Europe countries, the aluminum is very well selling in singles, but the stainless steel is more selling in sets. So it's also depending on the materials, no? Or in Eastern countries, the stainless steel is top selling in singles, even big size pots, and they are top sellers. So in the end, the very important thing about this is that every generation, every 10, 20 years, behaviors will change. But the most important thing is that we have to adapt to these behaviors and to adapt to any channel and get the goods as they want.
And it sounds like all three of you are doing a nice job of adapting. So we talked about some of the challenges that we faced, cooking from home, and I have one other question about sort of dealing with everything as it is now before we look ahead and talk about some of the things that we're seeing. Early pain points, at least with regards to this process, were mostly centered on the global supply chain, especially the early part, because most of that was coming out of China as plants were shuttered, greatly affecting production. That has since changed as the rest of the world was gradually exposed to the virus over the past several months. So Danielle, what lessons have we learned from a supply chain standpoint? And is that impacting changes that your company is making to diversify production or supplier relationships?
I mean, I think, we're not making any huge changes. We were able to adapt, but, we see it's very important to have the strong vendor relationships and continue to build relationships with our key suppliers. And, we are diversifying some. So with key suppliers, if it's a top selling item, we want to make sure we have 2, 3, maybe even 4 vendors, depending on, that are capable of making something. If it's, a really number one seller, that's been important. And then on the new product development side, it's also been important to be able to pair with factories and vendors that are able to adapt and that we're able to keep their engineering staff going, as well as keep their production going, because we don't want to be able to win in having our products in our warehouse, but then we have nothing coming as new development. So it's been very important for us to keep up that new development cycle as well. Of course, I would say maybe things slowed a little bit, but overall, I think we've been, trying to fare well at that. And it's we've had to adapt from the Chinese side with our partners and from our side as well, because we're all working from home, and that was something new for us, for everyone to be home, 100% of the time. And basically our office is still closed. So we're still making those changes, and how do we review samples, and what are the changes with that, and how do we test everything? So I think that was the next wave. After we got through the logistical part, it was how do we keep development going and making sure that we're still feeling really great about all of the products that we're bringing to market.
Jose, same question for you. What sort of lessons have you all learned, and is that impacting changes that your company is making to diversify supplier relationships?
Yeah, exactly. As I commented before about the logistic changes that the COVID is getting us through, we have definitely reinforced. This is what we have learned, that we have reinforced our relationships with our top vendors, factories, as well with our forwarders and transport companies, customers. We have discovered new limits that we didn't know were existing before. We thought that the situation may come till this point, but now it's exceeding a lot from that point. We have spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring goods by air. in 3, 4, 5 different planes in 3 days. That later, dramatically, we could not deliver to the stores because they were closing. So these situations where it goes to the limit, it has caused, of course, a big damage to the company, to cash flow. But in the end, we learn, and we are forced to speak also with the customers, try to reach to win-win situations with new commitments by 3 ways: factory, us, and the customer, and not only the distribution side, also banks. That before this happened, we did not expect that we could reach. Also sampling of new developments. Before was more easier, because we were there, we were flying there, we got the sample, we go to customers. Now it's everything by couriers. No way to see almost the final golden samples in your hands. So it's really challenging, and difficult to do this, because you have to rely more in the people that is in the factories and our teams in China. So sometimes in the past we were more, let's say, less confident on them. And now we have learned that we have very, very, very good staffs there, and that we have to trust more there, and make more video conferences, and touch the goods by the screen, and then in the end the business arrives and the goods are launched. So we have to come to the final thought that all these stress trips, etc. Sometimes we have to pull the brake and make something else, from our offices. Mm-hmm. So this is, I think, this is what we have learned. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we talked about sort of the early part of this in 2019, how we all started to deal with things, how strategy shifted, how folks are still cooking from home. But now let's take the last couple of questions here and look ahead a bit. I mentioned this earlier, but it's reassuring to see growth in our particular markets as consumers do return to the kitchen. So we hope that this connection to food continues and possibly even expands as they see how these different products and technologies really do make cooking at home easy and fun. Anecdotally, we've also seen, we've seen people across the world trying different things. Bread seems to come to mind. Everyone seems to be baking bread and sharing the results, both good and bad. But has your organization noticed any sort of surprise findings in general? And I'll direct this one to you, Jose. Are there any products that may have been lagging in growth that are now outpacing estimates, or any surprise findings that you all have found?
Yeah, besides Bakeware, of course, that everybody is now pastry expert. Everybody's cooking carrot cakes, chocolate cakes. Everybody has spatulas, and that before nobody knew what are these kind of things. Okay, but also fry pans. We sold a lot more of fry pans in different customers. Okay, hypermarkets we cannot sell, but for instance supermarkets, there were some promotions that were not selling well, and suddenly they start to sell. The sellout started to double. Okay, so this is surprising somehow, no, because of the lack of sell in other stores. But also another category that has been important for us is electro. Okay, and not only the robots that everybody is selling more, but we have we were launching in March a promotion in several supermarkets in Southern Europe about the party electronics. Okay, we like popcorn makers, hot dog makers, cotton candy makers, juicers, contact grills, all the stuff that you gather with friends or with family, and you cook something different. We were not expecting a good promotion when we launched it in December, but because of this situation, we have sold all the stock in 1 month. And it's been really surprising. Everybody wanted to have the popcorn maker or the hot dog maker or the cotton candies. anything that you can sell of these items, it's sold. I mean, it doesn't matter the price, whatever. I mean, it's a question of people who want to gather together in the dining room or in the close to the TV, watch a movie, and then of course you need the popcorn and all the stuff, no? So it's been a surprise for us, and definitely we were very, very glad that this happened.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see consumers shift. I know, at least here in the US, a lot of the focus was on healthy cooking and healthy foods, and that's still a bit of a focus, but in these sort of trying times, there's been a trend to go back to comfort foods, things that really make you happy. So it's good to hear that those things are all selling well. Wendy and Danielle, one question for you both. So as the world does gradually open back up, what new opportunities do you see or expect to come to light? Danielle, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of all agreed earlier that we think the cooking at home trend is going to continue. So I expect to see that going forward. I think people are finding different ways to cook. I mean, we both highlighted the bread as an opportunity there, and that's just something that people are realizing, oh, I can make this at home. I don't think they're going to be doing it every day because it's not going to be an essential thing for them anymore. But it could be every weekend or one weekend out of their month. They, that's a tradition that they decide to continue with their family. And I think, to Jose's point, just of, talking about the more novelty items that are the popcorn makers, a snow cone maker, things like that. I think we're just going to see things continue that are more can be considered a family event, or a group event. Fondue parties haven't been cool since the 70s or 80s, but that's a category that we've seen continue to be very strong for us throughout this whole episode of COVID. So as people are allowed to gather more and they figure out ways to gather but socially distance, I expect those types of cooking events where people can do things together to continue to be strong. So I think that's going to be something that we're going to see a shift of with the industry, and who's going to be able to keep pace with that. What are things that people can do together when they've realized now I don't need to go out and spend, a bunch of money to have fun. I can do it at home. And what are the different things that I can do to make it more fun for everyone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wendy, anything to add?
Sure. I don't want to harp on the celebrations, but we'll be taking it on in a different way, not so much novelty, but what are those things that you can make that are special, especially since people won't be celebrating at restaurants for maybe birthdays. And we're seeing people celebrating more of those small moments, at home. So we'd like to make sure the consumer has things that they can prepare those meals that they feel at restaurant quality, that are great for serving large groups. Even our large groups now might be 6 people. So we'll be focusing on that. For us, taking it to a little bit of a different direction, knowing that we've got a factory and a lot of our products made in USA, we're expecting people to be more drawn to the Made in USA story than they had more recently, just for several reasons. One, health and safety. They might be a little bit more reassured knowing the quality standards and that we bring as a high-end brand made locally. And then also we're seeing people want to support local and, supporting local restaurants, knowing that a factory is going back to work and people have been furloughed. Supporting those businesses, we expect there to be some support there. So we expect that trend to be, at least for the next year, something that people are a little more interested. And then I think the other big opportunity that we've touched upon is just the opportunity in e-com, making sure that our products are all well displayed and well understood so that consumers can get all the information they need without the reassurance of going into a store and picking it up and touching and feeling it. So for us, I think we'll see the brands that embrace this and make this a priority are the ones that survive and thrive. and the ones that don't move as quickly are going to suffer.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Well, I want to thank each of you for taking the time today to talk about this. It's always great to hear from the folks who are, directly working on everything. I want to thank you for watching along at home if you took the time to watch this video. And do want to remind you that we have a Slido open where you can use the hashtag AskPPG to suggest future topics or any questions that maybe we didn't get to today. So thank you again to our 3 participants, and have a great rest of your days.
Thank you.
Bye.